This is the On the Mark podcast, bringing you facts, opinions, and personal experiences from the outdoor industry.
I got the opportunity to shoot an AR-15. That was one of the funnest experiences that I've had.
It's pretty exciting. It's a big rush.
Presented by Sightmark, an industry leader in optics, bore sights, night vision, and more. Make your mark. Today, we're going to take a trip to bear country. We're going to venture on up to Oregon. We're going to be talking to Tyler Tiller with Timber Creek Outdoors. Now, Tyler does a whole lot of bear hunting, elk hunting. He even does some Africa hunts. So Tyler is going to give us some insight on, hunting some bigger game. And frankly, it's some game that a lot of people don't have the opportunities to hunt, or maybe they've always wanted to and just didn't know where to even start. Tyler, before we get into the hunting side of things, I want to talk about Timber Creek Outdoors, and just you and your background. Give us a little bit of information about you. What makes Tyler Tyler, and how'd you get started with Timber Creek Outdoors?
Yeah, what makes Tyler Tyler is my folks and my God and my family. But kind of expanding on that, we've had a family business that my dad started in the 70s, and it was primarily plastic injection molding, and so just various plastic parts. And then my dad started making plastic parts for a company called Bowtech, an archery company out in Oregon. Yeah. And shortly after that, my dad became a partner in the company, and we were heavily involved in Bowtech in the early 2000s. And after my family was no longer involved in Bowtech, it was kind of that, what's next thing. Sure. And we still had our injection molding shop. We still had our CNC shop, and making gun parts kind of just fell into our lap. And Timber Creek Outdoors was born with our accessory line.
Very nice. Yeah, and so you guys are a manufacturer of AR accessories, basically, right? Like you have build kits and stuff like that, but you're not manufacturing full firearms per se, right? Just accessories and parts and upgrades and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. So it's all the aftermarket upgrades. Almost all the parts, not all of them, but the majority of them are CNC machined aluminum parts that we then anodize or Cerakote and have a wide variety of colors to really just customize your firearm. And the majority of our accessories are for the ARs or the modern sporting rifles. But we've been getting into some other platforms, and we're starting to have some accessories for some rifles. And in the coming years, we're really branching out. I have some new things for SHOT Show coming up with some Timber Creek flavor on some different platforms.
Oh, nice. Yeah, hopefully I get to see you at SHOT Show. We're pretty excited about finally getting back out into the show industry with this COVID hit. Hopefully this new flare up everybody's getting freaked out about doesn't get us all shut down again. But
we're Timber Creek right now is in the heat of show season. So we just had our first show down in Arizona. We have 2 more shows coming up in Texas, and then another one in Nevada. Nice. So right now we're busy traveling around and hitting up shows.
Yeah, same with us. I'm actually this weekend, and by this weekend I mean I guess tomorrow, because today's Thursday. Tomorrow I'm going to be headed to Fort Worth to Texas Trophy Hunters, and again that's another one that I've really enjoyed, and I'm just happy to get back out there. Like I'm just so thrilled to get back to normal life. Right. But how has Timber Creek been doing with just everybody flooding to the firearms market, whether they're buying a gun, a pistol for self-defense, or maybe they're running out and buying that semi-automatic AR-15 because they're worried they're going to be banned. My guess is, if I'm an outsider looking in, I'm saying there's probably a whole lot of people running out, buying whatever is on the shelf at Academy, whatever last black AR is hanging up, and then afterwards looking for a way to upgrade that. Have you seen that effect come through on your side where, business has just kind of skyrocketed with all that?
Yeah, the last 8 or so months for the entire industry across the board has been, absolutely insane. The number of new gun owners out there is a phenomenal number. Tons of new people are buying firearms and seeing the value of owning a firearm. And at one point, maybe about a year ago, people were just buying whatever was on the shelf. I think the market's stabilized a little bit more now.
Right.
You do have all the new gun owners or all those people that went out. Maybe they weren't a new gun owner, but bought a new gun.
Right.
And now they are starting to accessorize. But industry-wide, it didn't matter if you made a holster or a scope or a gun accessory or ammo or the actual firearm. I mean, I don't know another time that we saw that extreme rush.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we experienced it here with our optics. I mean, we were backlogged like crazy, and just from the sheer volume of new people coming in, and whether it was anything from our lower end optics or brands all the way up to our higher ends. I mean, everything was just completely backlogged with orders. And anyway, I think the industry as a whole is kind of starting to get back up underneath themselves and kind of get all these orders caught back up and kind of catch everything back up to where, not everything is completely backlogged all the time. I mean, hell, even the Academy down the road here, they got in a shipment of ammo Wednesday, which ammunition's a whole different monster, I know. But they got a shipment of ammunition in yet Wednesday, and it almost looked like pre-pandemic. They had now prices were still freaking stupid, but they actually had stuff on the shelves, which was good to see. Yeah.
Well, Timber Creek kind of hangs their hat on a few things. One of them is all of our color options. Another one is, the U.S. made products. But one that's really important to us and our sales team is our delivery to our dealers. And, the majority of our business is sending those parts out to our dealer network and the independent gun shops and the different partners we have. And we always pride ourselves on same day shipping or next day shipping. A dealer calls us and places an order, we're going to get it out to them right away. And through that pandemic, we even got months behind, but we worked hard through it, and we're sitting now at a point where we're back to that same day or next day shipping. And they're through our whole product line, there might be a couple products that are back ordered, but as a whole, we're able to fulfill our customers' needs right now. And it's a real good feeling to have the products on the shelf and be able to send them out to people when they need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, interestingly enough, you are friends with Austin Rohr with Superior Outfitters, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I had him on the podcast a few episodes ago, and that's where I found that out. He kind of mentioned that you guys took a trip over to Africa at one point, which I'll ask you about later on. But how do you know Austin? Because Austin's all the way down here in Texas, and you're up there in Oregon. What's the connection there? How'd you guys meet?
Yeah, so we are a vendor for a buy group called Nation's Best Sports. And Austin with Superior Firearms is a member of that buy group. So the first time I met Austin was down there in Fort Worth at the convention center at one of those Nation's Best Sports shows. And we were a young company. We were a new vendor, probably had 5 or 10 employees. And Austin was a smaller up and coming shop. It was his first NBS show. And, my brother actually wrote the order with him and talked to him. I didn't even meet him that first show. And after he'd walked away, he told me who he was. And he said, yeah, we're going to start doing blue parts. And I kind of looked at my brother and said, what? He said, yeah, we're going to make blue parts for them because their colors are blue and we don't offer blue.
Yeah.
And I kind of just shrugged it off like it was nothing. And, we made these blue parts for Austin. And next thing I knew, we were going down to Austin's grand opening or 1 year celebration, I think it was.
Yeah.
And down there and did a parking lot event with him and started talking to him at the shows. And, I think think we'd done a couple events and been around each other at a couple shows, and I invited him on a whitetail hunt up at Legends Ranch.
Yeah.
And that's when we really became good friends. I spent that week up there in Michigan deer hunting, and from then on, we've gone on a lot of hunting trips together here in the U.S. He came out here and bear hunted with me, and we've done a lot of exotic hunts and pig hunts down in Texas, and a few whitetail trips around the U.S. And just our whole relationship's pretty much grounded on that hunting trip and both of our passions for getting out and hunting. I mean, we work together and have a good business relationship, but the friendship really was developed out in the woods.
Nice. Yeah. And that's typically, you hear that a lot within the industry of like, hey, how'd you meet this person? How'd you meet this person? A lot of times it's the same thing. We're like, hey, we met them at a show and we just kind of hit it off. We went hunting together, and like there are lifelong friendships that are formed based on just like that activity alone, just going on a hunt and spending the weekend, whether it's out, hanging out by the grill, drinking a beer before or after the hunt, so that's cool. That's awesome to hear. Now, into more of a dive into like your personal life, I'm told you do a lot of bear hunting, a lot of elk hunting. That's where I'm curious, because I'm down here in Texas. I do a lot of pig hunting, a lot of deer hunting, whitetail deer, axis deer. I have yet, it's on my bucket list, but I have yet to do any of these as far as like your bear, your elk hunts. And I got some questions for you. Just bear hunting in general, I'm guessing we're talking black bear, right?
Yep.
Have you hunted grizzly bear?
I haven't. We don't have a season for grizzly here, and I don't even know that the fishing game would say that they're a grizzly bear here. There may be a few up in northeast Oregon around Idaho, but they'd be few and far between, and I don't think they live here. They may kind of come in back and forth. So
sure.
I've never been to Alaska. A Kodiak brown bear hunts, on my bucket list up there in Alaska, but I've never even seen a grizzly bear in the wild. I've seen them but
well, I just know when you think about bear hunting, most people are looking into black bear, but grizzly is an option. But I'm telling people, I've done some research on it, like just trying, because it's one of my things. Like I want to do it eventually. Price wise, like if you're thinking about maybe getting into bear hunting, start off with your black bear, because the grizzly is significantly more expensive. You're looking at like at least $10,000 from what I can tell on being able to get even started with hunting a grizzly bear. So for you, I want to focus on black bear. If you were going to explain to somebody like how to get started with a black bear hunt, let's say somebody from outside of Oregon, maybe that's going to take a trip up there to bear country and hunt up there, how would they do that? What are some things that they need to just plan on doing?
Yeah, so I mean, Oregon is a little different than a lot of the western states on how we have to black bear hunt. Here, we're not allowed to use dogs, and we're not allowed to bait.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, a lot of the Oregon bear hunting comes in the spring. The bears come out of hibernation. They're really active. They need to eat. They're eating lots of grass and grubs and just foraging for food. Most of the bears that are carnivorous haven't quite became to the point where they want to eat a lot of meat. They mostly want to get kind of lighter things on their stomach. So in Oregon, we do a lot of spring bear hunting, just glassing clear cuts. And so, preparation for what to do on coming out west bear hunting. The biggest thing I think people aren't going to realize is the difference in the lay of the land compared to what's down in Texas or maybe in the Midwest. I mean, it is extreme mountainous country where the bears live.
Gotcha.
And you're usually packing out pretty hard. And I think the majority of people have came from out of state to come hunt with me. Their biggest surprise was just the terrain and the physical commitment bear hunting takes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that before. Along with obviously elk hunting, which you have to be in tremendous like physical shape to be able to even hang with most of those guys who might be stalking for days on a time. It's a little different with bear hunting though, right? Usually, you could do a successful bear hunt within, 4 to 6 hours, right? Of walking out there, glassing, find one, and then you'd have to approach it and be able to take your ethical shot, right?
Yeah, I've been bear hunting, spring bear hunting. Here in Oregon, we have a spring season and we have a fall season. And from my experience, people are typically more successful in the spring.
Gotcha.
The fall bear tag, in my opinion, is more along the lines of I'm out deer hunting or elk hunting and I saw a bear and I have a tag for it and I harvested it. Where, springtime, there's not much else but turkeys and people are out targeting bears. But, in that springtime, because of my knowledge and the time I've been doing it, I think it's been a couple years since I've gone out on a spring bear hunt and not seen a bear. So, with different elk hunts, depending on where you are, can be more challenging based on the population and the terrain. But if you learn to know what a bear likes to be in the springtime and you know where to look for them,
right,
it becomes pretty easy to find them.
Yeah.
Now, seeing a black bear in a green clear cut a mile away and finding it and killing it are two different things.
Right.
That comes the stalk and the hunt. But
because they can smell really well, right?
They can. Yep. Yep. And you would not believe how fast a bear is running through a clear cut. They can get going on that rough terrain. But I think for someone getting into hunting and getting into bear hunting, when you just go out in the spring and you find green clear cuts and you just look with your binoculars, some people go out and don't see a whole lot, but they just use their eyes. And what you can find when you actually look through some glass.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so what caliber do you use for your black bear hunts?
I'm a huge fan of a 300 Win Mag.
Okay.
My dad got a Model 70 when I graduated high school, and that's really my go-to gun out here, no matter what game. But with bears, they're big and they're tough, and they don't bleed a whole lot. So, you really don't want to be tracking a wounded bear.
Right.
And they don't bleed. It makes it even harder to track one. And so I'm a huge fan of 30 cal and bigger.
Okay.
Now that can't be done with something smaller. My daughter killed her first bear at 9 years old with a 6.5 Grendel.
Okay.
And so shot placement is really important. But I've seen guys shoot a bear with a 300 Win Mag and it runs off through the clear cut, and now you're thick brush tracking a wounded bear.
Right,
and,
which is not something you probably want to come upon.
Yeah, it gets exciting. I mean, I've never had a bad encounter tracking a bear, but it's definitely in the back of your mind, and your heart races a little bit when you're doing it.
Yeah.
But shot placement, just like any game animal, is crucial.
Yeah.
So I like big guns with a well-placed shot, and they, you can usually break a bear down real well and make a quick harvest.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about, Oregon, you're not allowed to bait there. I didn't even know that, but I'd heard stories of like other places where you can bait. Guys will set up like a tree stand or something, and these bears they're naturally curious animals, and the bears have actually started to like climb up the tree to see like, what's this dude doing up here? What is this thing up in this tree? And these hunters have kind of been like, well, what do I do now? Shoot him right underneath me, or Right. But
yep. My dad and bro used to bait here in Oregon, and I was with them, but I was too young to hunt. And it was early 90s when they changed the laws where you couldn't do that. But I've hunted over bait in other states. And, I mean, it is pretty cool to be up in a tree stand and have a bear, 30 to 50 yards. And, my favorite thing about being a stand is just being so close to those animals. And typically, if you're quiet and you have good scent coverage, they're unaware of you.
Yeah.
And so get up and close and really observe them naturally.
Right. Yeah. Now, when it comes to black bear, and I'm assuming this is for just bears in general. I have heard that, and I've had plenty of bear meat, but someone else has always prepared it for me. I've heard when you cook them, you have to make sure you have to get them well done. Is that accurate? Because the meat has trichinosis in it a lot of times, right?
Yeah, it can. So you have to make sure it's cooked well. Almost all of our bear meat goes into a breakfast sausage.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's just a ground breakfast sausage with pork fat and spices, and we'll use it for all kinds of things. My dad makes an incredible chili out of it, but that's our favorite way to eat it. I've had a lot of bad bear meat, and in my opinion, that typically comes from the preparation long before cooking, just in the gutting and the skinning and cleaning process. And
right.
With bear meat, really important to get all the fat off. Typically your fat in game animals is not good like it is in beef.
Right.
And bears, it really just kind of sours the meat. And when you skin a bear, typically you then go back and you skin a whole layer of fat off of it. I've killed lots of bears where when it's skinned out, it looks just like a white marshmallow sitting there because they're completely covered in fat. Yeah. Especially all as they're gearing up for that winter.
Sure.
So from my experience, if you get that fat off of it and you get the meat chilled and clean as soon as possible, bear meat can be really good no matter how you're going to cook it or your steaks. Yeah. But we found that the sausage is kind of hard to beat.
Yeah, sure. Well, so going back to, when you're glassing and looking for a bear, are you guys allowed to use thermals when you do that up there?
So Oregon's made a huge effort to prevent the use of thermals. Gotcha. They recently reworded the regulations that says it's not lawful to use thermal image technology for the purpose of hunting or scouting game animals.
Gotcha.
So in theory, it is not legal. You can legally use a thermal to recover animals in Oregon. And I personally think how they wrote it is kind of a gray area.
Right.
If you're out bear hunting with a thermal in your hand over a clear cut, you're probably in violation of the law.
Right.
But I think it kind of leaves it up to the officer's discretion.
Right.
On what's legal and what's not legal. So I really don't have a good answer for you on that. I don't think I can sit here and say it's illegal because I don't think the regulations clearly define what you can and cannot do.
Sure. Well, the good news is in about 10 years, the kids that are coming up now could just say they couldn't read the law. Because I think I just heard yesterday that Oregon had done away with requirements for reading and math to graduate high school. So I'm like, oh well, 10 years from now we're gonna have a lot of fun with those people. But yeah. That's on a whole different topic of things, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I had mentioned it is because there is some mountainous areas here in Texas, and when I say mountainous, they're nothing like what you guys are dealing with. I'm talking like rocky hills at best. But I've done some ram hunting out there, and that took a lot of just glassing hillsides, and it was incredibly more easy to pinpoint something. With the thermal, obviously, just because there's the heat signature right there, which was pretty cool for ram because they actually blend in extremely well with the scenery. Black bear are going to be a little bit different. And I know that, black bear come in all kinds of different colors, not just black. But it made it a lot easier for the ram hunting. But I can see, I'm not going to get mad at Oregon for saying that you can't use it, because I do understand it. It makes it so much easier, and it sounds like the state is just trying to make it, give the animal as big a chance as you can. I mean, you can't bait them, you can't use thermals to locate them, and so I get that aspect of it. From my point of view, how does elk hunting differ from your bear hunting?
Oh, I mean, it's night and day difference for me. I'm primarily an archery elk hunter.
Okay.
So for me, archery elk hunting, it's a lot of
bow tech, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I do have a tech bow. It's a lot of hiking and locate bugles, calling, because then the elk are in the rut. And so, for me, typically I'm bear hunting with a rifle and glassing and looking for a bear a long ways away to make an approach on, where bow hunting, if I can hear an elk, I don't even care if I can see it. I don't use my binoculars a whole lot when I'm bow hunting, because an elk pretty much pops out for me at 1,000+ yards. And so a bear is, for me, a whole different animal on how I approach them. There may be some similarities in rifle hunting, just with out west, through all animals, you spend a lot of time glassing and then hunting after you've located that animal in clear cuts or up in glades. And for me, it's just night and day difference on the animal, because one I'm trying to be vocal with, and another one I'm just trying to find with my eyes.
Yeah.
And an elk, in my opinion, has more of a weariness to their sense of smell when it comes to humans. You can be 50 yards from an elk and it smell you and it runs over the next hill, where I've been around bears before and they smell you and maybe they don't like it, or maybe they kind of are aware of you, but I haven't ever been on a bear hunt where the wind and my scent just completely blew the whole hunt.
Yeah.
But I have seen elk at 400 yards get my scent before and run over the next mountain.
Wow.
But yeah, to me, it's completely different. The only thing that would stay the same is it kind of seems like they both love to live in the most rugged, nasty place you can find.
Yeah. Well, so how does it work with bow hunting and elk? You are going to spot them, or at least call and see if you can get a reaction so you can hear them, and then you have to physically make a determination of where you're going to walk to get into cover. I'm guessing on the ground to call them in to you, right? Yeah,
and I'm by no means an expert elk hunter. I've had a lot of opportunities and some success, but it's just a whole chess match. If you locate a bull off of seeing or hearing it, depending on the wind direction and the lay of the land and what direction he's headed, you're going to make a game plan to try to get in as close as you can and call him to you. But you're not going to catch an elk if he's walking away.
Right.
And so it is a whole chess match, and the guys that have done it a bunch are more successful because they found all the ways to not do it.
Yeah.
And when I was first getting into elk hunting by myself after high school and going out, and I'm blessed to be able to just go out in the woods out my back door, or back then when I lived at my folks' house out their back door. And I had a lot of close encounters with bulls, and I never got to shoot, and most of the time never got my bow drawn back. And a very successful archery elk hunter told me, Tyler, you just need to stack failures.
Right.
And you stack 100 failures, you'll kill your first bull.
Yep.
And he said it might take you another 100 failures to kill your second bull, or 120. But he said, if you keep stacking these failures, you'll get to a point where, maybe every 8 to 12 encounters, there's a shot opportunity.
Right.
So even the guys that are really good at it can't see a bull, walk over and kill it.
Right.
It's still a game, and elk are at least big, especially big bulls. They're big for a reason.
Right.
And they've probably been hunted before, and they've played that chess match before.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would think that you talk about stack up 100 failures, and at the end of that, maybe you get one. Maybe you get one before. Maybe you have to get 150 failures. I don't know. Just keep going until you've done it successfully, and along the way, you learn what to do and what not to do. That's got to make it like so much better when you're actually successful, because instead of just, okay, I'll use hogs as an example down here. I can go out tonight and shoot 30 hogs, and I know I can. And it's like, at the end of the day, would I much rather spend, an entire season chasing after one thing, and have that feeling of accomplishment when I'm actually able to achieve that, and then over time, if you go out and shoot 30 hogs every night, eventually you just become numb to it, and it could still be fun, but that sense of accomplishment is not necessarily there. So to me, that seemed like, how did it feel when you shot your first bull?
Well, my first bull was a solo hunt where I'd spotted him, bedded down, and I snuck down to them and hit a few cow calls, and they came in. And hunting is a huge part of my life, and I can easily get emotional because of hunting, and especially with my kids. But man, I watched that bull fall down, and the first thing I did was pulled my phone out and called my dad.
Yeah.
and about my success, and then after I got off that call, I just laid back and cried, just looked up at the sky, and thank God for the opportunity. But it's definitely a flood of emotions, and it took years of stacked failures to be successful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's cool, and the vast majority of archery hunters are not successful for elk year in and year out.
Yeah.
It is that chase and that that goal of, okay, maybe this year I get my bull. A lot of the guys that are successful put a ton of time into scouting, put a ton of time into planning their hunt, work their ass off hunting, 10 and 15 miles a day in the wilderness, and they've spent years stacking failures, so now they know how to do it. But I don't know any successful elk hunter that just goes out on the weekend and kills a bull.
Sure.
It's the guys that know the ground, know the animal, and know how those animals move and react, and where they bed and where they feed, and you really have to have all your stars aligned to kill a bull with a bow. And the people that don't stack those 100 failures to kill one typically have someone there showing them how it's done and calling the bull in for them, because there's a lot of people that get the opportunity to kill bulls their first few years hunting because they have a good friend that took them out and they said, okay, go stand next to that tree.
Right.
And that stacked all those failures to bring the bull right up next to them.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and then you have a whole nother side of hunting, which is, your Africa hunts, which I think, judging by my conversation with Austin, you guys just got back from Africa, right? Like, let's see, what was that? Maybe 2.5 months ago or so?
We got back right at the end of April.
Okay. Well, he told me you guys did it awesome over there. I mean, what was the hunt like?
Yeah, it was incredible. I'd never been out of the country, and Austin had been there previously. He tried to get me to go last year, and just couldn't work out with my schedule, or I guess years ago. And then last year we got this trip planned, and I was in Las Vegas, and he called me and said, turn your TV onto the news. And there was the South African president saying their country was shut down. No one was allowed in because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so it got pushed off, I think a little over a year. And so there was a lot of anticipation building up to it. Me being an archery hunter, I initially said, I'm taking a bow. And I got a new bow, got it all dialed in, and had these plans to bow hunt, and had this list of these things I wanted to bow hunt. And as things evolved and not being able to go for a year, and finally when we got the green light to go, everyone's kill lists had changed multiple times, and I got to the point where I didn't even want to screw around with my bow. I'm gonna make sure my trip over there goes easy. I don't want to deal with customs and taking my bow, and that's my first time going out of the country. I don't want to deal with all that stuff.
Right.
And so I just flew over there with Austin and showed up, and the outfitter there had a rifle for me, and I think it was the best decision I could have made for my first time, because I didn't have that worry. And then while we were there, the first week, Austin and I spent some time going around to the different provinces, targeting specific animals. And then the last week joined up with the group there at Wow Africa at their lodge. And I think out of the 11 people there, I don't think there was a single person that would say it wasn't the trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it sounded amazing. And just in case there's people listening to this podcast that had not heard the one that I recorded with Austin, tell me a little bit about what you guys shot.
Yeah, so I mean, the game there was incredible. I mean, there hadn't been people there hunting for 18 months, and if you just think about all the trophies from a year and a half ago, they just got that much bigger, and there were more fawns, and any of the animals that would have been harvested would have been gone. And so the 11 people there took 120 trophies, and there was a wide range of different animals. So a lot of them were your common plains game, but I was fortunate enough to take 15 species, and I got a black impala and a white flanked impala, and then also my common impala. So that was cool. I was able to harvest a golden wildebeest and a blue wildebeest, and that golden wildebeest was incredible. The only wildebeest I'd ever seen was on The Lion King.
Yeah.
And I thought they were just going to be this big, dumb animal. And I was interested in the golden wildebeest just because of the uniqueness. I thought they were beautiful. But hunting the golden wildebeest, I really developed a respect for the blue wildebeest. I mean, they have great senses, and they're extremely skittish. And what I thought was just this big, dumb animal is actually this animal that provides a really cool hunt and a neat chase, because they're not easy to just stock up on.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, he had told me that you guys had shot quite a few, and that a lot of for those who don't know, a lot of the meat of whatever they harvest over there actually went to the local communities to help them out, and it was dearly, dearly needed. You talk about a country that had been on complete lockdown for a year and a half, and a country that those local communities thrive on those tourist interactions, whether it was hunts or photographers coming over. The revenue that those things take into those communities is vital to them. So they were ecstatic to have you guys come back in and be able to one, provide some income, and then two, some meat to the local communities there. I do have a question that I didn't ask Austin, which is, are you going to get any mounts out of this stuff?
Yeah. you know, almost all the animals will be brought back here and then mounted here in the U.S. But to touch back on the meat thing, you know, I'd heard a lot of different things about what happens to meat over there. And, you know, it was really neat with WOW Africa. They have a meat processing facility there on site. And so we had the opportunity to eat our game meat every night, and they had this big chalkboard over the table, and so, you know, it said Austin's ostrich, or, you know, Josh's impala. So every night you came in, and it was a sense of pride when it was your name up there and your animal that everyone was having. And we did harvest, I think, about a dozen animals, Austin and I, that we strictly harvested for meat donation to the community. And at the end of the hunt, we were able to present the community with that, and they were very gracious. And that still left a lot of meat there on, you know, there in the facility. And WOW takes that and processes it and does take it to the meat market. And that's another source of revenue for them. And then some of the meat also stays there at WOW, and you know, WOW employs several dozen community members, and so, you know, they feed their employees while they're there, and they're able to have that for clients and things like that. So I've had that same question about, well, what do you do with all the meat? And the reason I wanted to touch back on that is because I don't believe a single piece of meat goes to waste.
Right.
It is all consumed by people that really need it. And it was neat to provide that community with those animals that Austin and I purposely got for donation to them. And they were extremely gracious to have meat, because typically they eat corn. Their only source of food is corn, and they make it into bread, and they make it into a thing kind of like grits. And you know, if you're just eating bowls of mashed corn every single day, a piece of red meat is pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I could imagine. Yeah, I don't go a couple of hours without eating some red meat these days. So I couldn't imagine that. But hey, we've got just a few minutes left here. So what I wanted to do was just kind of give you a plug. Where can people go to find out more about Timber Creek Outdoors? Maybe there's some extra people out there with some plain black Bushmasters they picked up at Academy they need to upgrade. Or in my case, my wife wants an AR-15 really bad. She will not accept a straight flat black gun or dark earth or anything. She wants a robin egg. She wants something with robin egg. So what I'm going to be ending up doing is probably getting one of your kits that are, I saw you got robin egg on there. In fact, my boss actually has one of your kits in his office right now that is robin egg. And I sent her a picture of it, and she was like, oh yeah, I need one of those. So we're probably going to be doing that. If people need to go find more information about you, what's your website, social media if you got them, best way to contact you guys?
Yeah, for sure. So the best way to, in my opinion, to learn about Timber Creek in today's day and age is look at Facebook and Instagram. I mean, if you want to see what kind of parts we have, there's hundreds of pictures there from customers who built their guns and they're really proud of them, or from pictures that we post of cool guns that we have around here and in the shop. But figure out what you want. With the ARs, you can have a pistol, you can have a rifle, you can have a gun that shoots 1,000 yards. So people always say to me, what kind of AR should I build? Well, figure out what you're going to use it for, and then scroll through the pictures and decide what you want it to look like. Do you want it purple, or do you want it black, or do you want it FDE? And once you really have a good idea of what you want, you can go to our website, timbercreekoutdoorsinc.com, and we have a dealer locator there. My opinion on the best way to get into Timber Creek is go into your local gun shop that has it and visit with them about it, because they're the professionals, can help you with everything. But if there isn't a local dealer, we do have a sales portion of the website where you can order directly from us.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Tyler, man, I want to thank you for the time today. I know we've been trying to get this together for some time, and so I appreciate you being able to carve out this time for me. And, man, just keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on doing more hunts. Maybe I'll have you on. Hopefully I'll have you on in the future where we can just touch back on some new hunts that you've been going on, new experiences and stuff like that. So I'm going to keep you in the pipeline for later on, and just keep killing it, man.